right. What is up, guys? My name is Fatherhood, and I'm going to tell you about my experience with Ibogaine, the amazing compound that is being used all around the world to cure people of their addiction. Just a reminder for YouTube, this is an informational video where I'm going to be sharing with you some information about this technology, this tool that was used in a legal medical setting. Let's see, 11 years ago, young fatherhood was a heroin addict. I was deeply, deeply, deeply troubled. I was at the time intravenously injecting about a gram of heroin a day, which for me was a lot. I weighed all of 117 pounds when I left for treatment. I lived in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and my addiction was about to take my life, but there was a seed planted many years before. I had read a wonderful book called Breaking Open the Head by Daniel Pinchbeck. All my love and admiration to Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. If it were not for your book, I might not have known about this miracle compound. See, in this book, Daniel travels the world indulging in these cultural experiences like the Iboga initiation with the Bwiti tribe in Gabon. And he talks about how he was a smoker who smoked maybe a pack or two a day, and after his Iboga, not Ibogaine, Ibogaine is the specific alkaloid, but after his Iboga initiation, he said he noticed after a couple of days that he hadn't reached for a cigarette. This is the healing power, a small showcase of the healing power of Iboga. For myself, when I fell into addiction, I realized I was in trouble the first time I had withdrawal. You see, I had a very different trajectory than many people do with addiction. I had been addicted to pills for maybe 7 years, and it had been an on and off relationship that always ended in me coming back. And then when I was in school, I met this lovely young lady who introduced me to heroin. I started smoking heroin, and then I met another girl, and we started smoking heroin together, and we smoked it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we decided, hey, let's just bypass this whole shindig and let's start using needles. So that's what we did. We got some needles, and we started shooting up heroin, and it was an instant love affair, not between me and that girl, but between me and the heroin. And I started shooting up heroin, and because I lived in a isolated geographic location, I lived in the mountains of Colorado, where the heroin cost about $120 a gram, I had a vehicle, and I was able to start driving down and picking up for a large number of people, and in return, I was given kind of a cover charge of a gram or so from each person, and it resulted in me getting a whole bunch of free heroin, and it just kind of spiraled my addiction out of control. It was a really serious situation, and when it finally came down to it and I decided I wanted to get clean, I had a few options that were in my awareness. One was Suboxone. Suboxone is essentially trading one heroin for another heroin. It is a pharmaceutical grade opioid, and what it does is it essentially manages withdrawal by giving you that supply of opioids that you are getting from a doctor. But it is an entirely new sentence. If life was already a prison sentence for you, Suboxone is only going to be an entirely new prison sentence. So I'm online, and at the time, this is 2014, the most prominent Ibogaine facility was one called Crossroads. Crossroads Ibogaine was run by a gentleman named Martin Polanco, Dr. Martin Polanco. He is still one of the foremost experts in the world on Ibogaine. I reached out to his center, and a wonderful gentleman named Tyson Elliott answered the phone. He was an intake coordinator, and we talked for a few hours, and then he said, look, man, like, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? And I told him, well, I was going to go get Suboxone, and, I think that that's my best choice right now. And he says, bro, if you get on Suboxone, you're just stacking the deck against yourself. This is your best chance. He said, do you have money? I said, dude, I barely have any money. I'm in college, I'm working 2 jobs, and I'm a heroin addict, not much money. He goes, do your parents have money? I said, bro, my dad has been working his ass off his entire fucking life, and that man does not have money that I would be able to ask for. He has kids, he has obligations. He doesn't just have money lying around, and I certainly couldn't ask him to dip into his savings to help me. He says, look, I want you to call your dad and tell him what you have going on, because up until this point, I hadn't told my parents. I'm sure they had an idea, because we went out to dinner, and we were having dinner, and I fell asleep in my spaghetti at dinner. So I'm sure they were aware that something was up, right? I'm just working real hard, getting real skinny. So anyway, I call my dad, and I say, Dad, I'm a heroin addict. And he goes, yeah, I kind of figured something was up. I said, listen, man, I think I have a solution. I want you to talk to a doctor, okay? He's going to give you a call, and here's the deal is talk to him, see what he says. If you disagree with what he says, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll go to rehab. I'll do whatever, all right? I need help. I love you. I appreciate you, and I apologize for putting you in this position. And my dad called me back like an hour later, and he said, we're going to send you to Ibogaine. He said, I'm going to have to break into my savings, not his savings, his retirement plan. He said, but I'm going to do this because it's the only chance you have. And he meant it, dude. And in universal fashion, we had planned for 3 weeks until I would go to treatment. And the plan was I was going to go to my parents leading up to treatment. I spent about a week at home. And then I left to go to my parents' house to stay with them for a couple of weeks to wait to go to Ibogaine. Well, in, like I said, universal fashion, as I'm waiting for my opportunity to go to Ibogaine, getting ready to leave for my parents' house, one night I did what's called a hot shot. A hot shot is when you put a lot of heroin into a syringe and you try and kill yourself. And I did a hot shot and I woke up super sick, throwing up, just miserable, but it didn't kill me. And I woke up, I was supposed to leave that next morning to go to my parents' house. I said, I'm just going to sleep all day, dude. Fuck this. Like, I'll do a little more heroin. I'll be all right. And I do a little heroin, and all of a sudden I hear this, like, banging, dude. Just, you know, that's it. I don't hear. I hear all this banging going door to door. And it sounded like my friend Dylan. And in my heroin-induced stupor, I get out of my bed. I'm like, Dylan, get the fuck out of my house. Butt-ass naked. Heroin addict. And it's not Dylan. It's the police. And my drug addict mind goes, I'm going back in my room. So I go in. I shut the door. I go in there. I sit on the bed. I'm like, fuck. This is it, dude. Like, I'm cooked, bro. Well, they bang on the door. I open the door. They handcuff me. They arrest me. They put me on my couch with all my roommates. I'm sitting there. I'm like, fuck. No one here knows I'm a heroin addict. Well, joke's on me. Everyone knew I was a heroin addict. They're pulling, the whole Batman thing. I had this DEA agent. His name was Zach Courier, but they said that was like a cover name, so I don't know what his real name was. But he said to me, where are the drugs, like Batman style? He's like, who's the dealer? If you're willing to flip on your dealer, dude, we can get you a sweet deal. And at the time, I had done so much heroin that all I had was 0.8 grams of heroin. And I'm like, bro, you don't get it. Like, this isn't fucking Batman, dude. There's no dealer here. There's no fucking cartel, nothing. There's a bunch of addicts. We got a nice co-op thing going on. We all pitch. We buy the drugs. We do the drugs. That's it, bro. He goes, all right, fine. He goes, he throws me in a fucking jail cell, dude. And they throw me in a jail cell for 3 days while I withdraw. And it was the most agonizing withdrawal of my entire life. It was miserable. It was painful. Long story short, I end up getting a personal recognizance bond because one of the people I was doing heroin with was the judge's son. So during my arraignment, the last statement I made was I said, Your Honor, I was actually leaving this morning for treatment. The reason I was leaving is because a good friend of mine named Connor had convinced me to get clean. I just want to thank you, Your Honor. And his face went ghost fucking white. You see, I lived in a small enough town that there were only 2 judges, and one was gone on leave for the next 3 months. So they gave me a PR bond, and they filed a motion for a new judge because there was a conflict of interest. He was a good judge, my friend Connor's dad. So he filed a motion knowing that there was a conflict of interest there. And I left, and my lawyer comes and sees me in the jail. He's like, you're a fucking genius, dude. Like, you just saved yourself. You'd be sitting in jail until that trial if it weren't for the fact that they don't have a judge available for 3 months. So cool. I bought myself a little time. I go home. I go through all my shit looking for heroin. And of course, I find a couple little baggies of heroin, which is hilarious. They didn't do a very good job searching my place. So I get my whatever I could find, right? And I drive to my parents' house, and I stay there for, at this point, after staying in jail, I was in jail for 3 days, or 3 nights, 4 days, and I went home and basically it was miserable. I was in withdrawal. The clinic in Mexico actually sent me like 80 Dilaudid these 8 milligram Dilaudid. So I was able to use those, but in true heroin addict fashion, I burned through all of those. So I spent about 4 or 5 days withdrawing um, before going to Ibogaine. So I show up a sweaty fucking mess. I get there, they give me some morphine. Give me about 250 milligrams of morphine, which was fantastic. It helped me get through all the withdrawal, and they kept me on these short-acting opioids. See, it was a 10-day treatment, and my Ibogaine experience wasn't until day 8. So they kept me on short-acting opioids. In the meantime, I go through, and then on day 8, they take us from, so the clinic was in Rosarito, which is about 35 minutes south of the border from San Diego. So they take me down to, they take us down to the beach there, and we stay at this beach house, but the treatment was in Tijuana, in the city. And they show up, there's me and 4 other people who are being treated, only 2 of which were drug addicts, and then 2 were actually intake coordinators. They were having the experience as a way to like know what it is that they're helping people get access to. And I go, and they take us to Tijuana, they give us IVs, and then they go ahead and they give us like a test dose. And this test dose is a smaller amount of Ibogaine. It's not a flood dose, but it's to make sure that you're not going to react negatively. In this process, also, I'd like to remind you, they do blood work, they do EKG to test for abnormal T-wave intervals so you don't have a cardiac event. They do these things to make sure that it's going to be a safe experience for you. If you're considering doing Ibogaine at home, I strongly urge you to reconsider, or at least get blood work and EKG done first, and have an actual doctor or physician's assistant look those things over, someone with a skill set and experience. I will say I do help connect people with Ibogaine, so if you are someone who is looking to access these medicines, please feel free to reach out to me and I can connect you with providers. I have a network of providers all over Mexico and in other parts of the world, including South Africa and Portugal. So we have access to this medicine and we are happy to help connect you with it. But they take us in for our flood dose to get us all IV'd up. We're sitting there and they give us the test dose. I'm like, okay, it kind of feels like MDMA. Like I feel like I'm coming up on something very stimulating. And they go, okay, it works. Like you're good. You're not having any adverse reactions. We're going to give you the flood dose now. And they give us the flood dose, and slowly, one by one, everyone starts falling into this crazy psychedelic space. The guy next to me starts moaning and groaning and crying. The guy to my left, he starts having an event where he actually cries and tries to commit suicide with his IV cord. He starts wrapping it around his neck and screaming, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'm just sitting there. I got to be honest. I spent years doing drugs. And when I was a young teenager, I took a lot of ecstasy. So to me, I'm just sitting here having this experience. Like I wasn't really trying to go inward. I wasn't doing anything. I was treating it just like another drug. And I look in front of me, and I'm still friends with this doctor to this day. His name is Dr. Falk. But Dr. Falk pulls out, so one of the only things you can do to counteract Ibogaine is you can use Valium. And this will sedate someone through their experience. And he goes to pull out Valium, but he has to cut it. So he has 1,000 cc thing of saline. Like it looks like a Looney Tunes syringe. And he pulls that out and like squeezes it so the saline comes out, and then he puts the Valium into the syringe and mixes it up. And he goes to give it to him. He's going to inject it in his IV bag, right? And I look at him and my eyes get big the second I see that giant syringe. And I go like that. And he just turns and we make eye contact and he just dies laughing, dude. He's like trying to contain it. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on here? And they give it to him and he calms down. And Dr. Falk comes over. He goes, hey, you need to close your eyes. The best way for this experience to work for you is for you to close your eyes and try to get some sleep. So I close my eyes. And when I close my eyes, you see, Ibogaine activates rapid eye movement. And so you start dreaming. Even while you're awake, you'll start dreaming, which is responsible for a lot of the like hallucinatory effects. When I close my eyes, and all of a sudden I'm a pig running through a jungle, and my heart is just beating like crazy, and I'm running, and I'm being hunted by someone. And then I'm assuming they got me, because it goes black. And I wake up, and I'm a child again. But this time I'm not in my body, I'm watching my body. I'm a fly on a wall, and I'm watching an experience I had with my mother after she got home from Iraq in 2003. You see, my mother was a paramedic, but she worked in prisons. She worked in prisons that were black site prisons where they would torture people, and then my mother would clean them up, and they would send them back, and they would torture them and send them back. And needless to say, my mom had really bad PTSD, and she also had a heat stroke and was injured by an IED. So, mom gets back, and I'm just a kid who wants to see their mom, who hasn't seen their mom, and she's different, right? And so I am very, very frustrated by this. And one day I'm talking, and my mom goes, "I wish you would just stop talking, just stop talking, just stop talking, just stop talking." And I say, "I wish I had my mom back." And she goes, "I wish you would stop talking." And I just started going off, dude. I said, just start talking. And I wasn't going to stop. And next thing I know, I'm on the ground. My mother has me in a rear naked choke, and everything's going black. And I wake up, and my father is screaming at my mother. I'm laying on the ground. My dad's trying to like check on me. And my mom's crying, saying, I just wanted him to stop talking. And I watched that from a fly on the wall perspective, and I felt my mother's pain. And I forgave her for that pain. I saw that her circumstances led her to do something that she wasn't proud of, and she wasn't even really present for that experience in the way that I was. And I realized this was much of the root of my addiction. You see, when your creator tries to kill you, as I had perceived it, it's very easy to see yourself as not having value and as being someone who shouldn't exist. In coping with that, my solution was drugs. Next thing you know, I come out of it hours later, probably 16 to 18 hours later, and everyone's still out of it. Everyone's asleep. Everyone is zoned out and in, like an entirely different world, and I'm wide awake. And I don't feel bad. I don't feel withdrawal. I don't really feel anything. And the staff, they were Mexican. They don't speak Spanish, and I didn't speak any Spanish at the time. And they start speaking to me, and I'm like, can I get a phone? I want to call someone, like all this stuff. They're like, "Nah, dude, you can't do that." But there's this chick has a laptop, and she's got the DVD for a book called what is it called? Actually, I got it right here. Let's see. It is Dan Millman, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. So I've got the book for it. It's one of my favorite books, and shout out Dan Millman. What an incredible dude. But this story, man, I watched this movie and it fucking changes my life. It blows my mind. It's this story about this guy Socrates and this kid Dan, and how he meets this old man at a gas station who changes his life and is like this guru to him. And I watch that. It blows my mind. And eventually everyone wakes up and they bring us back to the house on the beach. And the first day is called the gray day because you're like, man, this didn't fucking work. This is terrible, dude. And after the gray day, I wake up and it was like a dream. I woke up from a dream. Everything was so colorful. I was so hungry. I hadn't eaten in months. I ate the most amazing food, and I just watched the waves. And I sat on the beach and I just watched the waves. And I cried and I felt my emotions coming back and all of these amazing cathartic things. Now, the day following that, the day following the gray day, that's when I was introduced to the toad. The toad is 5-MeO-DMT. It comes from the Bufo alvaris toad. And you're given this as a way, it was described to me, as a way to like kind of, Ibogaine fractures you. And so you need something that will bring you back together. And the toad, they call NN-DMT, right? The spirit molecule. The spirit molecule. The spirit molecule is very famous. It's where you go and you meet machine elves and all these things. And they gave me not NN-DMT, which is the spirit molecule. They gave me the toad, 5-MeO-DMT, which is the God molecule. And the God molecule, the best I can describe it is as the experience of dying. And when you die, death brings peace, ultimate peace, a peace that washes over you that is so hard to explain, but it's a sensation that even when I sit and I contemplate it, it brings chills to my whole body. Because I had been torn open by the Ibogaine, and the 5-MeO-DMT gave me peace. It showed me that my life was finite, and it showed me that I was going to die, and that death is not the end, right? Life implies death. Birth implies death. This is not the end. This is just a transition, and a very peaceful one if you choose not to fight it. And I had a very beautiful, warming, and cathartic experience. And these two together worked as if as if two allies with different skill sets, good cop, bad cop. One ripped me open, showed me all of my wounds. The grandfather said, "Look, that's what fucking happened to you. That's why you're such a miserable prick. That's why you're using drugs." And then the toad said, "And I still love you. And it's going to be okay. And we're here for a purpose. We're here for a reason." And I actually had a really crazy cathartic experience on the toad that maybe I'll talk about another time, that kind of gave me an indication of the direction I would take in my life. And then I went home, right? I go home, and now I've been court ordered. Eventually I went to court. I tried really hard to do this empowering speech. The part where they're like, "Mr. Madison, do you have anything you want to say?" And I said, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm a son. I'm a friend. I'm a student. Sometimes I get the opportunity to be a teacher. I'm many things, Your Honor, but I'm not a heroin addict." And she goes, "Mr. Madsen, you're a heroin addict. Sit down." And I was just like, all right, well, I tried. So they transfer my probation and make me an offer where essentially I got 8 years of probation. I got time served for jail, and then I was told, like, hey, I might have to go to rehab or something if my probation officer determines that that's necessary. But they transferred my probation out of district to where my parents live, and it was agreed that I would move in with my parents, which was a huge blow to the ego. But I go online, I post on Facebook, and I say, hey, I'm going through a lot right now. If anyone could get me a job, I'd really appreciate it. And I'm sure all these people are like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude, right? What's going on? But this one girl who's so kind, who I had a friendship with in high school, she reached out and she said, hey, I manage some pizza joints. I'll get you a job. She got me a job. And one night we're all working, and they get invited to a party, and out of sympathy, she invites me as well. And I go to this party, and we sit, and we have this wonderful conversation for about 7 hours, and her boyfriend gets pissed that she's talking to me for 7 hours. And it was beautiful. Really amazing conversation. I left. I called my best friend from high school. I said, dude, I think I'm in love. And he said, nice, dude. Good for you. Like, he couldn't have given a shit. And then a couple of years later, me and this girl started dating, and now she's the mother of my 6 children. And I only bring that up to kind of share a point that the Ibogaine made abundantly clear to me, and that's that your suffering may just be your salvation. The discomfort of an Ibogaine experience, a 5-MeO-DMT experience, of being a heroin addict, this is an experience which will contrast all of the joy you have in life, and the two together in their totality will paint you a picture that might just be the most beautiful picture you've ever seen in your entire life. It's very possible that one could say, without my house being raided, without me going to jail, without me being a heroin addict, I wouldn't have 6 children today. I wouldn't be sitting in my beautiful home, in my studio space, talking to you guys right now. I wouldn't be sharing this message. That was the greatest gift that the medicine gave me. I've been clean since 2014. December 2nd, 2014. Now I get the opportunity to help others. I'm also on a path where my continued convergence with plant medicine has informed me that these medicines are technologies, and they're technologies that let us convene with God, a God that had I not convened with, I wouldn't be here alive speaking to you today. I wouldn't be the father I am. I wouldn't have 6 beautiful children. I wouldn't have a lovely wife. I wouldn't have this beautiful home, and I wouldn't be making an impact in other people's lives. Plant medicine did that for me, nothing else. So that's my testimony. That's it. The medicine has told me time and time again, speak, share this. What's missing for most people and what leads them down the path of addiction is not just trauma. Trauma is one piece of the pie, but it's the missing interface with God. God is here. God is present. God is in everything, and you can interface with God if you choose to do so. And these tools, these medicines, they are a wonderful way to do that. So thank you so much for listening to my story. I'll be sharing a lot more. I was recently inspired by a close friend who has a pretty big YouTube following, pretty big social media following, and he shared with me some secrets. And he told me, he's like, dude, you should be sharing this. Last time I did ayahuasca, I've only done, I did ayahuasca a lot in the first 4 years of my recovery. And then I waited 6 years. I waited 6 years to do it again. I did it last fall, September time frame, and the first message the ayahuasca gave me was inform the others, inform the others, share. That's the point of this: share, connect with others, right? Just like Daniel Pinchbeck's book Breaking Open the Head informed me, it's my job to share my story, my testament, so I can hopefully inform others and afford them the opportunity to find this wonderful medicine and connect with God in the way that I have. So thank you so much for watching this video. I love you all. Go ahead, give this video a like, give me a follow. I'm trying to build this channel so I can share this with you guys, because this isn't just about me, this is about you, this is about us, and this is about this whole thing. God is still here. We just have to learn to connect with God more often, right? So, I love you, dude. Have a great night. All right? Peace.